thumbnail. We're streaming to Facebook. We're
Great.
streaming to LinkedIn. We're streaming to YouTube.
Where'd you get that number?
On your website.
Okay.
Is it wrong?
No, it's probably I have a number of numbers.
I get it. I get it. Okay, so you had somebody do your
depending on the lead.
That's so they know where it comes from.
Yeah.
So they could take credit for it.
Yeah, let me just exactly. Let me just make sure it works. Hold on, let me just hear.
Well, I got to say, some of your website did not work.
Really?
Yes.
I just had it recently updated.
Some of the links didn't work. Yeah, there you go. Tell me. We're live. Okay, let me go with this. Okay. Did it go to the service?
It did.
Okay. Hey, Joliet, do it. Yeah. Yes, bump.
Thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast. Another great episode is on the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts and join Stephen and Jim as they talk about everything under the sun and have a whole lot of fun.
All right.
News, sports, movies.
It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Pop culture, and puppies.
You love puppies.
It's the Watch Talk Radio podcast.
See how we are attuned to what's going on in the world, that we have Alex Jones talk about puppies. So we have Dave Schwaner here. He's Attorney Dave Schwaner. Remember, Dave, get very close to your microphone. Obscenely close. Move it over to you.
All right. Got it.
And then because I want everybody to hear what you have to say. We're also streaming to watchtalkradio.com, so you can go there and listen to the show. We'll see the show. So if you don't catch it live, you can go there and see it all the time. Same thing with YouTube. Everybody knows that. So thanks so much for joining us, Dave.
Pleasure to be here, Steve.
Okay, so we're going to start the show because if I talk to you too much before the show, all the good stuff is not on the show.
Got it.
So I don't like to mingle.
I thought you were just being rude.
I kind of am. It always reminds me. Did you ever watch the Dick Van Dyke Show? How about you, Josh? Okay, there's that episode where he's being interviewed and the guy, and he just kind of turns out talks. He won't talk to him. He won't talk to him before then they start, and then he hits him with all these questions, and he finds out about Alan Brady, and then this was live, and he's like, wait a minute. I don't do that though.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
Welcome to the Trust Radio Network. Join your host, Attorney Stephen A. Leahy, every Saturday night at 7, right here on AM 560, as he engages in conversation with some of the most trusted professionals in all of Chicagoland. Enjoy interviews with local professionals dedicated to providing the very best products and services. Learn who they are, what they do, and most importantly, why they do it. Take a step inside the minds of some of Chicagoland's most successful business leaders and learn all there is to know every Saturday night at 7 on the Trust Radio Network. Now, here's your host, Attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
Hey, welcome to the program. I know that's a tall order. You're going to learn all there is to know. It's a tall order. We in 1 hour. That's right. Joliet. We're here with Joliet Josh, our technical producer. Remember, the show is sponsored by the Law Office of Stephen A. Leahy, PC, and Opum Tax Advocates. Opum Tax Advocates helps business professionals solve their IRS problems forever. We help them with audits and levies, liens and garnishments, collections, unfiled tax returns, and payroll tax issues. We also help people with mortgage foreclosures, loan modifications, bankruptcy, and man, I think it's coming, and other types of debt. So if you're having a problem, you should give us a call at 312-664-6649. Again, it's 312-664-6649. You can visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Now, you know this is the Trust Radio Network, where we introduce you to trusted professionals, people you can trust when you're making important decisions. And I say it a lot, but I'm going to say it again. There's no more important decision than who are you going to hire to help you if you need a lawyer, right? We call them attorneys. Yeah, that's what other attorneys call them, attorneys. Other people call them lawyers. But if you're trying to find an attorney, you better find the right one, right? And it's not always easy. And so we try to introduce you to trusted professionals, attorneys that you can trust, and when you're making an important decision as who to hire as an attorney. So this week, we're going to reintroduce you because he's been on the show before. And our guest this week is Attorney Dave Schwaner.
Thank you for having me, Attorney Steve Leahy.
Thank you so much for.
Appreciate you inviting me once again.
I'm so happy that you're here, Dave. I always happy to. Dave and I are. The secret is that Dave and I are old friends. I've known Dave for a long time. I think I knew Dave when he was in law school.
Yeah,
and. It seems like that was a long time ago. Not that long, though. But welcome to the show, Dave.
Thanks so much, Steve. Really appreciate it.
Speaking to the microphone, Dave. I know this is not...
Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so, I'm always interested. First, let's tell people what kind of law you practice.
Sure. So I practice exclusively personal injury law. Basically, I help those that are injured as a result of the negligence or wrongdoing of others.
It sounds like an attorney. Well, do you have I was looking on your website. I see that you have some areas that you talk about. You talk about bicycle law.
Sure.
You talk about these other types of law. But you help people with just about any kind of injury, don't you?
Over the last over 15 years, I've handled just about every type of injury accident you can think of. Okay. That said, I would say currently my practice primarily consists of automobile negligence.
Is that right?
That's right.
That's good. And of course, that's where it's all out there. That's where people are getting hurt.
That's everybody.
Yeah.
That's the vast majority of injuries occur behind the wheel.
Now we know what kind of work you do. Tell us about yourself. Where are you from?
Sure. So I grew up in the west suburbs. I graduated
western suburbs of Chicago.
Yeah. Graduated a Cubs fan.
I knew that. Dude.
Yeah. I know you're happy with that. And went to Loyola. Graduated there undergrad. Went to Loyola for law school. Really enjoyed it. Had found a deep love for trial work.
Did you get that in law school?
I did.
Now I'm going to ask you because you're kind of getting ahead of me.
Sure.
Because I always like to talk about how people went to law school. I interview a lot of attorneys, and I'm always interested. Did you always want to go to law school?
I did. I was one of those where sitting around the kitchen table and arguing and having my parents tell me, you're going to be a lawyer. You're going to be a lawyer. So, I think I kind of
your father is a doctor, isn't he?
correct. So I'm the
And
black
your brother
sheep.
is.
Yeah, I'm the black sheep of the family as a lawyer. But every family needs a lawyer, let me tell you.
Especially doctors.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. So, but
So
no,
you always knew you wanted to be an attorney.
I did.
Did you act on that? I mean, did you, like, when you were in high school, did you think I better do this so I can get into law school, or I can get it? Or when you went to undergrad, did you think I got to take this type of classes to become an attorney?
I did. When I was in undergrad, I very early on already started preparing for the entrance exam for the LSAT. Just on my own, no courses, no nothing, just knowing what I wanted to do and knowing that that's what it would take in order to get where I needed to get to.
And I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What was your first job out of law school?
My first job was as a law clerk with a personal injury and trial firm.
Friends of ours.
Yeah, friends, which actually was in the very same office space that you occupied.
That's true. That's how I know it.
I remember a lot of times being stressed out as a clerk because you're given assignments that you have no experience in whatsoever. And of course, the attorneys that give you the assignments are too busy to tell you how to do it because they're working so hard. And I remember I'd get some respite every now and then. I'd run by your office and I'd say, you know what, it looks nice and quiet in there. I'm just going to go sit in there for a little bit.
Unfortunately, it was
breathe and breathe.
Well, and I remember that well. I remember, and of course, I always like to ask that question to attorneys because oftentimes, now maybe that's what you said you had some trial. You always knew you wanted to do trial work.
Correct. Yeah. So in law school, I took trial practice one. Absolutely loved it. I knew from the first second I gave my first argument in front of my peers, this is what I wanted to do. Then I took advanced trial advocacy. I thought I excelled at that as well. So that just kind of became a calling for me that I didn't know I was going to do until I actually went to law school and took those courses. I had some amazing professors for those courses as well. So that was it. I was done. From the first time I gave my argument in front of my peers at trial advocacy one, I said, this is it. This is what I want to do.
So even before you got your license, you were working at a personal injury law firm.
I was trial firm.
And so, because oftentimes when I talk to attorneys, their first job out of law school is what they do for the rest of their career. Many times it's not what they picked, right? It's just kind of where they landed.
True.
But you picked it. You kind of knew what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I knew what I wanted to do.
Did you know it's personal injury, or did you just that's trial? That's what you wanted to do.
I knew because again, I come from a family with
that makes sense.
Very strong medical background.
That makes sense.
Even as a kid, I was reading medical dictionaries. I know it sounds really nerdy, but we didn't have much else to read in the house.
You're an attorney,
and right,
nerdy is kind of goes with the territory.
True, and so I knew that if I could do something that also had some sort of medical requirement in it, that I would exceed at that as well.
And of course, as a personal injury attorney, you're looking at medical records all the time, aren't you?
Correct, and I'm used to arguing with doctors, so right,
that makes sense.
So so it really was a natural fit for me, and I've loved it. I've been really blessed.
Yeah, I again, it's nice to know what you want to do and then prepare to do it. I've got somewhere to go with that, but we don't have enough time in this segment. But now you have your own practice.
I do. Yeah. So a little over 6 years ago, we opened up the doors of Schwaner Injury Law. We've had a terribly successful 6 years. This year, 2022 has been unbelievable for us. We continue to overachieve for our clients, which is really what we set out to do. And, at the end of the day, try to make them as whole as we possibly can and put them in a position where they come out of something that wasn't very good at first and where they come out and they actually see some light at that end of the tunnel and they feel comfortable with where they're at.
Sometimes money is enough to make it better, but oftentimes money's not enough, right? Because you when you're injured, that's a terrible thing.
It is. It's completely life altering often, and so even with money, it doesn't take away the activities that you were able to perform before that you can no longer perform, and just activities of daily living, interactions with your loved ones also takes a hit. So yes, absolutely.
It is important. The money works out, but it's you'd rather not. That's why you have to pay them, because you can't make them better. So you got to pay them. Tell people how they can find you, Dave.
So they can find me just going online, schwanerinjury.com.
Tell them how to spell Schwaner. I don't think anybody knows how to do that.
It. So it's a German name. So it's SCHWANER and then injury, INJURY.com. schwanerinjury.com. You can always give us a call if you have a question. 312-635-4000. Again, 312-635-4000.
I know everybody has a bunch of numbers. I got a bunch.
Too many.
Although I've had the same number for almost 40 years. Anyway, remember though, this show is sponsored by Open Tax Advocates. Open Tax Advocates helps business professionals solve the 3 problems, right? You can owe the IRS money, you can have unfiled tax returns, or you can be overpaying on your taxes. We could solve all of those problems. Give us a call, 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. We're going to take a break here on AM 560. The Answer. I got a little carried away there.
That happens.
Josh can perform miracles behind the fix stuff. Here's our clock, so you know.
Okay. Okay. We went way over there?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I was about a second over. I like to be perfect. About a minute left is when I'm going to ask you, maybe a little, 55 seconds.
Sure.
That's when I'm going to ask you what's your address, how people can contact you, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So now is the questions that I would really, usually I like to talk about what we just talked about in this segment, but that worked fine. And I've kind of been doing that lately, because everybody wants to talk about that and that right when we start talking about it. Let's do the next segment there, Mr. Technical Producer.
And now, back to the Trust Radio Network on AM 560. The Answer. Real conversations with some of the most trusted professionals in Chicagoland. Once again, here's attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
Hey, we have returned. This is the Trust Radio Network, and we're here with Joliet Josh, our technical producer. Like that. Our guest this week is attorney Dave Schwaner. Dave Schwaner's I call him Dave. His name is David. I tell him Attorney Schwaner. And he's a friend of mine. I've known Dave for a long time, even before he was an attorney. And so welcome back to the program, Dave.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Okay, so here's where I want to go with this. We were just talking about where, your background, how that you always knew you wanted to be an attorney, that you went to law school, you went to Loyola, you started your first job. Okay, so here's where I'm going with this. I have 2 sons. Both of my sons are in law school.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow.
Both of my sons are, and so I always ask the attorneys here, what kind of advice would you have for a law student or a new attorney? What kind of advice would you have for them?
If they can, I would say, because you had just alluded in our previously when we spoke regarding the fact that your first job is usually the line of work that you stay in, right? And that would be to work as hard as they can so they get the job in the area that they want, that they really want to spend time in and enjoy. Because it's true, once you take on a job, if it's not in the area that you like, sometimes just due to life circumstances and so forth, you kind of get shoehorned into it for much longer than you'd like, and you waste time as opposed to doing what you actually love. And so my advice to them would be work really hard so that you can get a job in the area that you enjoy practicing and that you could see yourself practicing in, versus just coming out and taking the first job or the highest paying job. Because if you love it, you'll be successful at it. And if you're successful, obviously economic, the finance aspect will come along with that.
We talk a lot about whether you're a trial attorney or a litigator. Are you a trial attorney?
So I am a trial attorney. I think as every trial attorney would say right now, we have been forced to become litigators just as a result of COVID. And but we're, courtrooms are back open. Things are starting to move forward. And I'm looking forward to getting back in the courtroom and helping some of my clients.
When I'm asking about advice for now, we talked about law, and maybe you should worry about your first job, but about when you become an attorney, talk a little bit about what the difference is. Like when you became an attorney, did anything surprise you about becoming an attorney? I mean, was it different than you thought it was going to be?
It was different. I think just the level of responsibility is, astronomical compared to just if you're a clerk, right? If you're a clerk, it's common for clerks to make many mistakes. But as soon as you're licensed and to practice in your state, and you're handed the responsibility of someone else's life, right, and their injuries, and to help them with those, it's daunting, and the level of responsibility is substantial, and it requires substantial commitment.
Well, I agree with that, and I think when you're talking about someone that's injured and they're placing their trust in you, and I think as a new attorney you don't really grasp it as much as you should. Although, and I know this is kind of odd, and I don't know if I've talked about this on the show before, but I always liking it, becoming an attorney too, and don't get me wrong in this, but kind of like a priest, in the sense that, and I've talked to a lot of priests about this, right? When they become a priest, right? When they're students, they're just students, and then they go through the ceremony, they lay down, and the hands are put upon them, and when they stand up, they're priests, and people treat them differently. And many priests have told me, that kind of surprised them. The same thing when you're an attorney, right? You
100%.
You go to school, you become an attorney, you take the bar exam. You're still just a student, but then you get the license, and then everything changes. People treat you differently.
People absolutely treat you differently. Again, I think the biggest change or the largest change is that you are now responsible for an issue in someone else's life. Yeah. And you are primarily or principally responsible for that. And I think that responsibility is something that maybe a lot of young lawyers are not ready for, or have a hard time dealing with. So I think maybe a little early exposure, especially in some firms like I worked in, where these guys, everyone worked really hard. There was lots of trials. I saw a lot of stress while I was working there.
I was there when they cut your tie for the first time.
Oh, that was fantastic.
Tell people about that.
Yeah, that's I like that. So just basically, one of the things that the principal founder of the firm, Jim Marisi, great guy, great lawyer.
He's been on the show several times.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And he, one of the things he did was after your first verdict for your client, after your first jury trial and verdict, he would come by and cut your tie right off and hang it on the wall, and then obviously put all of the statistics of the trial and statistics of your success right up there and pin it up there with the trial. I was fortunate enough to
have a cheap tie on that day.
I actually didn't. I didn't. I think I only owned like 3 or 4 ties at the time, really, truly. And so, but I was really fortunate in that as soon as I graduated the bar, as soon as I passed the bar, I was sworn in. I was handed files. So I had my first client.
That doesn't happen all the time.
It does not. You work under some other attorney, basically pushing paper, writing, reviewing, proofreading. Whereas at this firm, I was entrusted with a number of files immediately upon becoming sworn in.
One of the reasons why, because you were a clerk already there, so they already knew what you were capable of.
I was there, I think, for already 2 years. Yeah. They knew what I was capable of. Mm-hmm. And
now, before we run out of time, and I want to ask you another question. Talk about the difference between having your own firm with your name on the and being an attorney with somewhere else. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I would just say that I did have a lot of autonomy in previous practice at other other firm, but I would just say that I'm fortunate enough that I can make the choice as to whether or not I believe that I should be working on a file or not, whether or not I should be working on a particular case. So I get to make that choice, right? So that's number one. So I get to choose who my clients are. That's fantastic.
I agree with that.
That's fantastic. And so that's number one. Number two is obviously the freedom. The freedom to litigate and handle a matter the way that I want to handle it. And that way, I think each attorney kind of has their own way or mode or method of handling matters. Well, it allows me and it frees my skills up to be able to do it in the manner skillfully that I do it, which maybe isn't a way that someone else would handle that case, but the way that I see it and the way that I want to handle it.
Do you feel an added responsibility?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely an added responsibility. But I would, a client is a client, whether you're the principal
Agreed.
at the firm or not. And I always, even when I wasn't a partner, or principal at a firm, I still, at the end of the day, did everything I could for my clients. Spent a lot of nights awake thinking about
as
cases.
any good attorney should, right?
Right, and worked very hard. Even though I wasn't a partner or principal, I always felt an allegiance towards my clients. I'm a people person, as you can tell. I like to talk, so I try to get to know my clients, and I hopefully they stay in touch with me after I've helped them with their matter. Lots of times they do, which again is awesome. But that's, I would say that part didn't change as far as responsibility. I always felt responsible for my clients.
That's good. Tell people how they can find you, Dave.
So you can either go online and find us at SchwanerInjuryLaw.com. That's SCHWANER injury INJURY.com. Or you can just give us a phone call. You can even text us 312-635-4000. Be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding any potential injury matter. We've handled all types of matters, so feel free to give us a call. It's a free consultation.
I think that's important that people are free to call you and see. So everybody's not right for everybody, right?
Correct.
I always tell people, you meet somebody at a tavern, you say, I like that person, but I wouldn't date him. Same thing with an attorney. So just because he's a nice guy, you might not like him, but you talk to him first. So remember, that's what I'm going to ask you to do too. If you have a tax problem, call us. I'm always happy to talk to you about it. Call us at Open Tax Advocates at 312-664-6649. We're going to take a break here. We're going to come back with the Constitution segment. That's my favorite segment. And we're going to talk about a recent Supreme Court case with Attorney Dave Schwaner. Join us, won't you?
Looking forward to it.
Good. AM 560, the answer. But I didn't do that.
How's your nephew?
Good. I just saw him the other day, and he's coming out tonight. He's not on the show anymore, obviously.
Yeah.
I wanted to. How about? Do you keep in touch with your clients?
I try to. Yeah, I do.
Do you have a newsletter?
I don't. In that regard, I don't. As far as emails, I don't really do that. I should. I don't.
I'm just going back to my newsletter because I stopped it during COVID since I didn't really have anything to put in it. but I think I like the marketing part of it.
Sure.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about marketing and what you do to get clients. It's everybody's different,
Sure.
And obviously I do a radio and I do and I get clients that way, and some people are like our friend Jimmy does. He's really on referrals.
Yeah.
And that's where he gets most of his business. And so and of course that's nurtured and it's not by accident.
No, you develop it over time. Yeah.
Nothing's by accident.
Correct.
If you wait for it to happen, it
Good
won't
luck.
happen.
Good luck.
So,
Yeah.
And, but when you said, I try to stay in touch with my clients, and I'm just working on this newsletter, and I got this. I'm also going to a conference in a week, maybe 2 weeks, and to see my guy that I've always read and followed. I wish I followed better. His name is Dan Kennedy. Ever heard of him?
The name sounds familiar.
Dan Kennedy is a direct marketing guy.
Okay.
And he's guru gets pushed around a lot.
Sure.
But he's one.
Okay.
It seemed like everybody I ever hired to help me with marketing turned out to be like one of his proteges.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, and I look back and now I've read a lot of his books and stuff and listened to him. And I'm going out there. A couple of years ago, he was supposed to have died. And I got an email, Dan's dead. And then I got an email saying, he's not dead, but he's dying. And then everybody was I was getting updates on his, and now he's back. He's fine. So I figured I should go out and meet him. I wish I followed more of his stuff than I do. I would say I've kind of I use his stuff by accident. Without him, I probably wouldn't have made anything. But even the little stuff that I've done has worked. If I just followed more of what he did, it probably would have worked a lot better. That's like everything.
Yeah, of course.
You try to work your practice and this and
sure.
It gets a little. So we're going to talk about the is it Carson case?
Yes.
Said?
Yeah. It's
okay.
Carson versus Makin.
Okay. Let's do it, Joliet.
Okay.
You're listening to the Trust Radio Network on AM 560. The Answer. Step inside the minds of some of Chicago's most successful business leaders. Here's your host, Attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
From 1788 until the end of time, we the people make a resolution to defend the Constitution.
We're not going to sit here and listen to you badmouth the United States of America.
So let liberty, justice, and freedom ring. It's the Constitution segment.
Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do.
That's right, Ronnie. And let's keep it that way. I say that every week because I want to keep it that way. I'm a big Constitution fan. And I know everybody says, I am too. I don't think everybody is. But I think our guest today, Dave Schwaner, Attorney David Schwaner, he's a Constitution fan, aren't you?
Absolutely.
So I asked you to pick out a case or an issue or something with the Constitution. What do you want to talk about?
So there's a very interesting case that was decided by the Supreme Court, and I believe the opinion was released mid-July. Carson versus Makin. Are you familiar with that case?
I am. Yeah.
So it's very interesting in that in Maine, Maine is an extraordinarily rural state. There's just large rural areas. And unfortunately, they didn't have the schools for the children there. There's not enough public schools. So what they decided to do is just give these kids basically vouchers to go to a school of their choosing. However, there was some restrictions in how they could use that money or what schools they could go to. The main one, which the Supreme Court talked about, was the fact that they were not allowed to go to a religious school. So that was the issue there. So obviously, two parents decided to bring a lawsuit, which good thing they did,
yes.
Because law was absolutely changed. Insofar as the Supreme Court decided you can't discriminate.
Refresh my recollection, Dave. Wasn't there was something else? What case that came before this that I'm sorry. I didn't mean to because there was a case that's very similar but different that they kind of built on. But anyway, we're talking about vouchers all the time, right?
Sure.
School vouchers. Such an important case.
Oh, absolutely. It's really, I think, and the Chief Justice said it best in his opinion when he said, basically this amounts to a religious discrimination. And that's really what it is. It's religious discrimination. For the state to hand out checks for people, for children to go to school and then tell the parents, well, you just can't choose a religious school.
You can pick any school you want.
Correct. Just not a religious school. So that's, that is discrimination, very simply. Now, the dissent, Justice Sotomayor, the dissent in that opinion said, hey, look, we need separation of church and state. And even though we understand that, the free exercise clause and that we should be able to, exercise your, religious choice and activities, we still believe that the separation of church and state is more important, and therefore we disagree with what the majority was doing. So I personally have a hard time with that, just because I don't think that there's any. It's not as if the state is sponsoring, right, a church, okay, or sponsoring that law be made through church, or I mean, this is simply just allowing a family to be able to have their child educated in the manner that they see best or most fit for their child, and that's any religion. Right, or non-religious, or
I'm going to take a side. I'm going to side with you on this because I think that it is an important case. I think now with COVID, more and more people are doing homeschooling or doing something other than public schools, and vouchers are becoming a big issue. And of course, if you don't want to send your kid to public schools, most parents would choose a parochial school. But without, so it wouldn't be very good to get a voucher, I think, to go to a voucher system and then not be able to choose the one that you want.
Correct. And there's statistics that were done after this. I think there was a U.S. News report that had a litany of statistics regarding the college preparatory tests and how the scores of children that went to private schools were higher than children that went to public schools. So then the only limiting factor here was religion, right? You can't go there because it's religious, because they're going to teach you about whatever God you.
And there's always that list of things that you're not supposed to discriminate against, and one of those are religion.
Correct.
And if you put any of those in there and say, well, we're not going to help. You can go, but not if you're handicapped. You'd say, well, you can't do that.
Right.
I agree with you. Very good case. Love that case. Tell people where they can find you.
Okay, sure. Absolutely. So you can find me online at schwanerinjury.com. That's SCHWANER, injury, INJURY.com. You can always give us a call or text us at 312-635-4000. Or if you happen to be downtown in the Loop, you can always stop by my office at 111 North Wabash, Suite 801. Come on up and say hello, and we always look forward to free consultations and providing people with advice.
Okay, so we're going to take another break. Join us on the other side here on AM 560, The Answer. Of course, I'm sure they talked about it in
Trinity Lutheran is, I think, the
what
one.
was the issue? The principles applied to Trinity Lutheran and Espinosa suffice to resolve this case. Let's see what the religious schools in this case are disqualified for generally available. What was it? Daycare center in Trinity Lutheran. Oh, it was for daycare. That's right. We can fund daycare, but you can't use a religious daycare.
Okay, sure.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And so they said, well, wait a minute. If you're going to let them, you got to let them pick wherever they want to go.
Right.
Well, you can't go to a religious daycare. So you could. And of course, that feeds right into this. I wish I would have remembered that. I try to read. Can't read all the cases.
Sure.
I encourage people though to always go to the U.S. Supreme Court.gov and at least look at the summary of the case. They have the syllabus, and it's only usually a page, maybe 2 pages, and it'll spell out what the case is about. And we should all take an interest in this stuff, so we can at least think of when you hear, like I think when people have a reaction to Dobbs, for instance. This is the case that overturned Roe v. Wade, and so they have a reaction to it without really understanding why it was overturned.
You got to read it. You have to read it
because you might be convinced and say, "Oh, I know that I'm pro-choice, so I'm against that." You could be pro-choice and still support the Dobbs Amendment. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think it's consistent, to be quite honest with you. That if you're a constitutionalist, and so if you read the logic behind why they came to the decision that they came to, it may change your mind.
And I think too,
not about being pro-choice, but just about whether the Supreme Court was wrong in overturning Roe v. Wade.
Agreed. And I think that also stems from, I think, some just misinformation that is out there. You get some poorly written articles out there regarding what that writer from whatever times or whatever it may be believed, that opinion said, right? When it could be way off base. And
we even had
provide
this last night. Our president of the United States, who was last night saying, they took away your right to choose. No, they didn't. That's not what that case did. And so I really, as you just said, I think a lot of people skew it, and it's not what the case says.
Correct.
And so read the case, at least the syllabus on all the cases. Many things I don't agree with. No, so I was going to say they change my mind. Okay, they don't always change my mind because but then I can at least argue why that logic isn't. I don't agree with the logic behind it. Rather than, I think I'm a constructionalist, right? I'm a originalist actually, I'm not a Gorsuch, which is a textualist.
Sure.
I don't know, where would you put yourself on the spectrum?
In the middle.
And what does that mean?
That means that I'm a, I want
outcome determinative.
I'm a constitutionalist. Okay, at heart. Correct.
Is it
outcome determinative? I feel we do need to be cognizant of the changes in society, and is amazing as our forefathers were. They could not see everything in the future.
But who could?
Exactly.
It's called the legislator. They can see the difference,
right?
And that's where I think I have to. If we leave it, my kids always say 9 unelected or 5 unelected. Because it's always 5. It's always 5-4, right?
Yeah.
5 unelected judges determine this, and so again, both my kids are in law school, so I get this. We debate all the time.
That's got to be wonderful.
It is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Of course, they were. I don't know. I never pushed them to be attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I'd have to ask them whether they always knew they were going to be attorneys. I think my oldest, he kind of. That's why I was asking you. Like, did you know when you were in high school, and he kind of knew, and he kind of built how to get there. Now I tell you this. Now both my boys too. Not to brag or anything, but I'm gonna brag a little bit.
Good.
They're both on a free ride.
That's amazing.
At law school, that's something else.
Those are some smart boys right there.
Well, they're not really that smart, but they're smart enough to know the system.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I've met your wife. She's very smart.
He's right. Isn't that right, honey?
Yeah, exactly.
But so I'm very proud of them. And again, both of them. And here's another thing. I'm just going to put this out there too. They both finished at University of Illinois in 2 years.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I told Jake and Joe, put this together. People would pay for that.
What are you feeding these boys?
People would pay for that.
Yeah.
That's how do you do that?
Correct.
And to be quite honest with you, I had nothing to do with it. I did not say do this, do that. Never told him where. I remember when Jake came home and told me he was going to law school. He had already taken the LSE. I didn't know he took the LSAT. Now Joe, I did know. And then Jake was going to take a.
Well, you instilled something in him.
Well,
something.
I'm
something good.
Very proud of him. But again, I have this whole series now of attorneys. I've interviewed a lot of attorneys now, and I have a whole series of them giving my kids advice. So, and Joe is my youngest. He takes the videos and splices them up, and so he always listens to them.
Okay.
And so at least he hears them. And here's the advice, and so it's important.
He got some good advice today.
Yeah, he did. So, yes, he did. I don't know. My son Jake is now taking a lot of. They asked him to be on the moot court, and
excellent.
Yeah, and it's his last semester. He's finished in 2 years. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to ask you about frequently asked questions. What do people ask you?
Of course.
Now, back to the Trust Radio Network on AM 560. Hear from Chicago's business leaders. Learn who they are, what they do, and why they do it. Once again, here's attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I am attorney Stephen A. Leahy. And we're here with Joliet Josh, our technical producer. Our guest this week will be attorney David Schwaner. Welcome back to the program, Dave.
Thank you, Steve.
I so far we've learned a lot about you, and I appreciate you taking the time to tell us. I want to know, because you help people with, you do a lot of car accidents and things like that, and almost all of us know someone who's been in a car accident, or if you haven't been in one yourself. What's the most common questions that you get from people about a car accident and what they should do?
So usually, the first question is usually very just general. What do I do, right? There maybe a relative is calling me from an emergency room, or they just got released back home from the emergency room, or they're in a hospital. This is what happened to me. I don't know what exactly what happened with the police report. What do? I have an insurance company calling me. What should I do? There's just generally right away. There's a lot going on, and people usually immediately realize, okay, I need help. I shouldn't try to do this alone, especially obviously when they're injured too. It's just an extra burden that they shouldn't have to.
Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a detour and say, what's the biggest mistake people make?
The biggest mistake people make is they, in my opinion, try to go it alone and try to handle it themselves. That usually is disastrous. And then we, attorneys are left trying to pick up the pieces and salvage their claim.
I was kind of leading. That was kind of a leading question.
It was. I didn't object though. I didn't object.
That was a lot, because I was thinking you were going to say, because you said something about insurance companies calling you.
Sure.
And one of the biggest, as far as I know, a big mistake is when people take these calls and answer questions without help. Isn't that right?
Correct. So usually they're laid up on their couch, and an insurance company representative calls them. They haven't slept because they were injured, and
maybe they're on dope.
Correct. They're sometimes on medication, and the insurance company representative is asking them to give a recorded statement over the phone regarding all of the various events of what occurred. And sometimes that can be very problematic for us because maybe they say something that they normally wouldn't have said. Maybe they just slip of the tongue. They say something that they shouldn't have. And they affect their ability to make ability for us to make a recovery for them.
I always tell people it's not a level playing field, right? Because might be the first time you've ever had a car accident. The person you're talking to, they've done hundreds of these cases, and they want you to say things that may, just in a way that will help them, that you don't even know that's what they're doing. You think they're trying to help you because they're an insurance company. I need a claim, and really they're not really trying to help you. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I mean, a number of times I've talked with clients, and they say, "Oh no, this person's so wonderful. It's so wonderful, and they've been great with me. They're really trying to help me." And you realize that there's a problem, that has manifested through these conversations that now I have to try to fix.
Yeah,
yep.
And it is. So I think that's. So what other kind of questions do you get?
Other questions are, what do I do about my medical bills? How do I deal with those? I generally tell clients that we just send them to us. We'll take care of them. We will send out letters, do our best to make sure that nothing is sent to collections and so forth, which you obviously know quite a bit about.
I do, yes.
That's your domain. But in addition, another question would be, what do I do as far as medically, right? The ER physician told me I needed to go talk with this orthopedic doctor. I'm still having problems moving my leg. What should I do? Right. And we obviously generally just tell them, look, if you're not well and you feel that you need medical assistance, go get medical assistance. We are not doctors. We are lawyers, right? We can't tell you what to do medically.
Even if my dad was a doctor.
Correct. Correct. So, obviously we know a lot about the body. We know a lot about injuries. I mean, I could tell you, the anatomy of
don't talk about my
just about any joint in your any joint in your body. But But no, I mean, and that's obviously because we have to know the anatomy.
I always heard, don't suffer in silence.
Yes. Yeah. Don't be brave. Don't suffer in silence. Usually that's the type of advice that we provide to our, construction workers, guys injured on the job. In addition to doing a lot of different personal injury matters, we also handle work-related injuries. Correct. Yes.
Okay. Did not know that.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's interesting to know. And it kind of go hand in hand oftentimes. I don't want to talk about my own thing, but that's a big thing, that not to suffer in silence, because people say, it hurts, but I'm not going to, I'll bear it out. But if you don't tell anybody you're hurt, how are they going to know?
Correct.
So it's important. So.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about where they can find you. Where can people find you?
Sure, absolutely. So you can find me online, schwanerinjury.com, SCHWANER, injury, INJURY.com. Or you can give us a call or give us a text at 312-635-4000. If you're in the loop, you can stop by our office at 111 North Wabash. It's the Garland Building, Suite 801. Feel free to stop in. We give free consultations. Happy to talk to you about your potential matter. Happy to try to see if we can do something for you.
Well, great. I'm glad you're here, Dave. That you rejoined the show.
Glad to be here.
I've been after Dave for a long time to get on the show, and he's a busy man. And I'm so happy that he took the time to be with us.
Love being here.
So he could share his expertise with us. No, he's not an expert. Attorneys are not experts. Can't be.
Right.
So, but he's well. I'm trying to think of the right word. Anyway, let me tell you about taxes, because that's something I do know about. I sometimes get tongue tied.
You sure do.
That's what I do. Anyway, call Open Tax Advocates, 312-664-6649. We're going to take another break. We're going to join us on the other side with Dave Schwaner here on AM 560. The Answer. This is a very short segment. I don't know if there's something that you want to talk about.
No, nothing in particular. I mean, we've
any
had
any good case that you've had recently.
We've had a monster year, and it just keeps going.
Okay, let me ask you that. What kind of advertising do you do? Where do you get most of your business?
So a lot of it, believe it or not, we get former clients, right?
That referring?
Yeah, referring clients, referring lawyers. I've always had a pretty large social network. We've kind of, my wife and I have always been out there, always doing stuff, always, volunteering.
Are you still doing that?
She is more than I am. I'm working too hard. I've been working. It's been the last, obviously.
Do you have other attorneys working with you?
I do. So I have other attorneys that I will work with, or
do you have staff?
Depending. Yeah, absolutely. But I have other attorneys that I'll co-counsel a case with, depending on the type or nature of the matter. It may.
But basically, you're working by yourself.
Correct.
That's good.
Yep.
I know how that is.
Yeah.
I have a staff also, and they help me. And what I find is, I use what we call them enrolled agents. I used to have attorneys working for me that did that work, but they're not accountants, and accountants in my line of work is better.
Correct.
It's better.
Yeah.
So it's really so you're not think of something you want to talk about. You want to talk about if you're doing any volunteer work, you got something coming up, you got something fun. Do you have any event happening?
Yeah, I do. Let me
okay.
I'm texting my wife.
I have an event coming. I am going to did I tell you that, Josh? I am sponsoring Black and Right, the cruise.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's coming up, I think the 17th of September. And I'm sponsoring that event. And then I have another event for another radio station. And that's coming up in November.
How dare you?
I know.
Traitor. Turncoat.
I do advertise on more than one station.
Steve, you are everywhere.
I'm no David Hochberg. Do you know who David Hochberg is?
I've heard of the name now.
Okay. He's if you've listened to the radio, do you listen to radio? Not very much if you don't know Dave.
Not much.
Because the guy's all over the place. He's a mortgage guy. And he's got a show on another station, as we say, one of the big stations. Not that this isn't a big station. I don't know. Say that.
You know what? On this last one, I would say construction negligence.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, hey.
And now, back to the Trust Radio Network on AM 560. The Answer. Real conversations with some of the most trusted professionals in Chicagoland. Once again, here's attorney Stephen A. Leahy.
Hey, welcome back to the program. This is the Trust Radio Network on AM 560. The Answer. We're here with Joliet Josh, our technical producer, and our guest is attorney David Schwaner. Dave Schwaner is a personal injury attorney. I put on the thumbnail torts. Tell people what a tort is.
A tort is essentially a tort is a matter in which someone is injured as a result of either the negligence or a wrongful act of another. There's other standards too there, and as a result are entitled to compensation or damages.
As I mentioned, I got two kids in law school, so we talk about torts because your first semester,
it's
right?
Torts.
It's about torts. And what
First year law school.
First year law schools. What do they want to do? They want to sue everybody.
Everybody, right? Yeah.
That's a tort. That's negligence. It's so funny to see that happen. My oldest again he's a little. You see him turn into lawyers, like I saw you turn into a lawyer. It's kind of an amazing thing. So, but talk about construction negligence.
Correct. Yeah, construction negligence. And speaking of sue everybody, right? That's oftentimes a type of lawsuit where you do want to cast a wide net.
Yes.
Okay. Just because you may not be certain as to who is at fault for the injury of a construction worker. So sometimes we'll have something will fall on a construction worker as they're working, or a floor collapses, or a wall collapses, or a machine malfunctions. And so it's very difficult for us to immediately determine who it is that was responsible. So
there's so many subs on these jobs, right?
So many different contractors on these jobs. We're correct. So we do a lot of investigation, but even with investigation and incredible investigators, it's still very difficult to determine who it is that's responsible for that occurring. So what we do is we cast a wide net. We don't sue everybody, but we try to sue a lot of different entities that we believe reasonably could be involved in the
because if you leave the guy out that's at fault, then the statute runs out and you can't sue him.
Correct. Once the statute runs out, if you don't have the right defendant in that case, then you don't have a case.
Yeah. So of course that's how I met Mr. Marisi. I had a construction negligence case. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you were an iron worker, right?
I was an iron worker.
Yeah,
that's correct. And so I'm familiar with how this works. Not from your side, but from the injured guy's side. I know how that works.
You had the rough side. You had the tough side.
I did, but I had the right guy. But you were an attorney at that time. Tell us how they can find you, Dave.
Sure. You can go online, find us at schwanerinjury.com. That's SCHWANER injury, INJURY.com. You can find us. You can give us a call or text us at 312-635-4000. Again, 312-635-4000. Or if you're in the loop, you can stop by and see us at 111 North Wabash, Suite 801.
Well, thanks so much for joining us here today, Dave. I'm so happy that you joined us. I always have a lot of fun.
Likewise. It's great to be here, Steve.
Yeah, and we'll have to get you back in again much sooner than the last time.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
So we'll book you in. So thanks so much for joining us. I hope our listeners learned a lot. I did. So thanks for sharing your knowledge. Now we're going to be back next Saturday at 7:00. Don't miss it here on AM 560. The Answer.
Thank you for tuning in to the Trust Radio Network on AM 560, The Answer. Be sure to join attorney Stephen A. Leahy again next Saturday night at 7 as he engages in conversations with some of the most trusted professionals in all of Chicagoland. Enjoy interviews with local professionals dedicated to providing the very best products and services. Learn who they are, what they do, and most importantly, why they do it. Take a step inside the minds of some of Chicagoland's most successful business leaders and learn all there is to know on the Trust Radio Network with your host, Attorney Stephen A. Leahy. See you right back here next Saturday night at 7 on AM 560. The Answer.
Yes, that is a tall order to learn all there is to know. We try to match that, but probably don't. We probably don't meet
Come
that.
close. Come
No,
close.
We don't meet that standard. Almost
close.
So thanks so much for joining us, Dave. I know you have to run, and I know, but you don't live too far, so
I don't live too far. It was 8 minutes to get here.
really,
Yeah, so I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Well, thanks so much
Yeah,
for joining us.
appreciate it.
Again, I had a lot of fun, and I hope you did too.
Yeah, I did.
And,
Thank you.
Like to see, love to see your career as it transpires.
Yes.
So it's very nice to see it, Dave. So thanks so much. For
yeah,
joining us.
appreciate it, Steve.
So do our out. No, I was going to talk more, but I better go. Okay, you know how I hate to say goodbye without giving all my. I could talk for hours.
I
Let's
know
do
that.
it.
Thank you for being a friend. Watching our podcast till the very